Financial Survival Network, helping you survive and thrive in the new economy. Go to CarrieLutz.com and sign up for 30 free micro trainings on financial survival.
$14.90 WGCH. This is Carrie Lutz. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. Have you dealt with a psychopath either at home, at work, or in a public place? If you have had any experience dealing with such individuals, Chris Dwayne is on the line right now to explain to you who they are, what they want, and how to handle them. Chris, welcome back and Happy New Year.
And Happy New Year to you.
You just wrote a couple of pieces about psychopaths and their vital contribution to the current American climate. What's a psychopath and how do you avoid them?
I think for the most part, we've all run into psychopaths, in our lives. I mean, they could have been the bully, they could have been the over-aggressive teacher, they could have been the cop that, writes you up 12 tickets, they could have been an ex-girlfriend, an ex-boyfriend, a boss. Somewhere along your line, you ran into somebody who actually took joy in making you miserable. And I have tried to really think deeply about where we are in the world. And while I came into my new vision of the world through understanding politics and money and what dollar is and all that other stuff, I come to realize that at the end of the day, these are all tools, and they're not really the root cause. So I'll talk about silver to my eyes bleed. And how it's a cure for fractional reserve banking and debt and all the problems that we have on Wall Street and stuff like that. But the reality is that the central banks of the world would not be a problem if they did not have these psychopaths in control out to manipulate and control others. So the quick theory that I came up with is that there are only two kinds of people in the world: those that want to be left alone and those that won't leave you alone. And if you look at it, I believe the majority of society really wants to do what they want to do, love who they want to love, and be left alone. And then there's this other group of people who, will do anything to control you. The further you look down that road, you realize that up to 10% of the world's population suffers from some sort of psychopathic delusions. And there's basic characteristics that people have, and maybe not to all degrees or maybe not all of them, but we have a society that is breeding this aggressive narcissism on a industrial basis, and it is designed to normalize social, psychopath behavior in order to make those that own and control our paradigm seem normal and have the system work.
Right. So this is not a new development exactly, is it?
No, I have a quote from one of the videos that I did from Cicero talking about this before even Jesus Christ was born. I forget the quote, and it's a very long quote. But essentially, it's, we should not fear the enemy at the gates because we know their flags, we see their colors, they dress and talk differently from us. The one that we should be fearing is the one that dressed just like us and speaks the words that we speak. And they go across our walls speaking words of poison and destroying institutions from the inside. He finishes up the quote with, a murderer is less to be feared than this person that he was describing, and I think it's a problem in human nature because we don't see these social predators in our midst. In fact, we actually seem to benefit those. We actually seem to incentivize these people in their behavior. And if you look at it, all the people that are making the most money and have the most power, I guarantee you, if you look at these 14 traits of a psychopath, you'd say, geez, they're psychopaths.
That sounds familiar.
This goes from our entertainers to our legislators to our CEOs to, anybody that's in power, at a collectivized level, most likely needs to have psychopathic behavior, or else they would not have been able to rise to the amount to the power that they have. And the quote that I've been kind of beaten on is Lord Acton's quote that says, "Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely." And I said, no, it's not that power corrupts. It's that the corrupt seek power. Because I think the majority of humanity really just wants to be left alone. And then when, you get into these collectivized systems, which the psychopath needs to have, because they need to have a forceful, working together with other people. Because if people were to deal with the psychopath on a very personal level, they wouldn't deal with them. I mean, look at all these people in Congress. Would you have them over for dinner?
Oh, man, I would run if I saw them coming down the street.
Kids, and yet we trust these guys with $4 trillion a year and, world governments and all this stuff. And yet these are despicable people. I wouldn't want any of them over. And that's the thing that where I want people to see that, the people that want to be left alone, they like individual power. They like, being individual. They like having the freedom to do that. And the ones that have this social predator, psychopathic behavior, want collectivism because it forces them to get, to forces people to give them the best years of their lives. And it's very important because the biggest weapon that the psychopath has is the lie. And they can lie without dropping a bead of sweat. And, it comes as natural to them as breathing. And yet that lie is the most important thing because without that lie, they cannot convince us to actively or passively participate in the schemes that they have. And these schemes can be as small as a short con, this mortgage scam, frauds that happened all over the world. It was an interesting thing that all these mortgages were conducted by, thousands of psychopaths that created, liar loans, and they did it for the quick buck, for the instant gratification, never thinking about the people or the long term or anything else other than their instant gratification. And yet that whole thing is going to bring down the world economy.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up because obviously in my travels I've met a lot of such people, and somehow they convinced themselves that merry-go-round was never going to stop. The piper was never going to have to be paid. Yep. So I guess what I'm saying is one of the prime characteristics of that socio/psychopath, and socio sounds better, but they're both the same. But the prime characteristic is to make themselves believe without any effort that everything they're doing is for the benefit of all, even though it's really for themselves.
They're all justifications. Before I even got into the psychopaths and the greatest truth never told, I had a quick discussion on cognitive dissonance and doublethink. And, the people have to first, lie to themselves in order to commit these things, because even the most remorseless psychopath, in his mind, he's doing good. And yet that's really what the psychopath does. And I don't even know if they're fully aware of how they operate or whatever. But first, the first thing with the psychopath is that they are hurt people. You've heard the
they're
comment,
damaged.
hurt people. And it's a natural reaction for when people are mentally abused or physically abused, that the ego, the brain, wants to defend itself. And the first reaction that they do is they shut off their emotions, and they become unempathetic. And that's because they don't want to get hurt again. So they shut off their own feelings for themselves because they don't want to reflect on the pain that they've been through. Then in turn, they shut off their emotions for other people. And what is left is a hole. And that hole needs to be filled because, we have to be able to, we have to be able to live and survive. And they go about filling that hole through unemotional things such as wealth creation, or excitement, or partying, or all this other stuff.